Welcome to Uniquely Spoken Podcast, empowering healthcare, where transparency sparks transformation. Are you ready to dive into conversations that will spark ideas and inspire action? This is a podcast that refuses to accept the status quo. This is episode 16, The Breaking Point, Ratios, Rebellion, and the Heart of Long-Term Care. Before we begin, I want to share a brief disclaimer. The views expressed in this podcast are my own, based on 28 years as a licensed practical nurse in a leadership role in long-term care settings. The stories and observations that I will share will reflect systemic issues across the industry, and all identifying details have been removed to protect privacy. But let me say something clearly before I go any further. I will talk about my experience, but this is not just my voice. What I am sharing today reflects what I have personally witnessed, what licensed practical and vocational nurses, registered nurses, nursing assistants, and caregivers are now openly sharing across social media. And let's not forget families and loved ones. Also, what research and national data are showing us about the current state of long-term care. Today, I want to provide clarity on why I am speaking the way that I am speaking, clarity on why I am advocating the way that I am advocating, and clearly on why this conversation matters so deeply to me. So when you hear this episode, understand this is not isolated. This is a collective picture of what is happening nationwide. I have been asked, what is my purpose? And why am I so focused on advocating on long-term care settings? This episode will shed light on the what and what if unexpectedly became a part of my life journey, and why I advocate for change in long-term care settings. Why I am asking you to join the conversation. You don't want to miss this episode. The breaking point in my career is where I have witnessed residents call 911 not for emergencies, but for basic care. They were left waiting, call lights unanswered, their dignity compromised. And I remember standing in a hallway thinking, how did we get here? As I watched staff sitting at the desk on their cell phones on social media. Because when a resident has to call emergency services just to receive basic care, the system has already failed. You see, staffing medications and pressures exist. So let's talk about why that is happening. Staffing is the foundation, but it's not just about numbers. It's about workload. When one nurse is responsible for 25 or more residents, care becomes a race. But let's be specific about who we're talking about. In many long-term care settings, the licensed practical and vocational nurses or registered nurses at the bedside and medication aides are the ones at the bedside managing medications. They are the ones carrying full assignments. They are the ones for high-risk, time-sensitive care every shift. Medication passes are not easy. They can be quite cumbersome, including multiple blood sugars, insulin administration, tube feedings that require certain regulations, eye drops with timing requirements, nebulizer treatments, follow-up calls to physicians, and unexpected emergencies, alongside of medication administration strict requirements. Medication administration is not uninterrupted. There are constant interruptions. What if a fall occurs, a change of condition occurs, or a physician calls back? Interruptions places licensed practical and vocational nurses further behind. Let's be clear, or the medication aides. LPNs and LVNs and medication aides are being held accountable for systems that are setting them up to fail. And we're seeing that play out in real time. Investigations are occurring. Legal actions have increased scrutiny on individual licenses and certifications. But the real question is, what system created that outcome? You see, when expectations don't match reality, errors don't just happen randomly. They become inevitable. This is a nationwide problem. Social media and data reflects it. So let's step back and look at the bigger picture. Because what I am describing is not just my experience. If you go on your social media right now, you will see licensed practical and vocational nurses, registered nurses, medication aides, nursing assistants, and caregivers across the country telling the same story. Overwhelmed, understaffed, rushed, burned out. And when you align that with national data, it confirms the same reality. Facilities and communities are limiting admissions. Some are closing units or shutting down completely. And one of the major concerns raised during the repeal of staffing ratio regulations was exactly this: the fear that facilities would close due to staffing shortages. But the truth is, we are already seeing closures. And at the same time, research shows that large numbers of nurses are leaving the profession due to stress, burnout, and workload. And we have to be honest about something. That shortage is not just happening on its own. It is being driven by the conditions inside the system. In the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services staffing study conducted by ABT Associates, researchers observed thousands of real care interactions inside nursing homes. What the study shows is that staffing levels directly impact whether care can be completed safely and on time. It highlights the pressure, the workflow constraints, and the challenges staff face when there are not enough resources to meet the demands of care. Now, the study does not say that nurses are intentionally cutting corners, but it does show that when staffing is insufficient, workflows become compressed. Times becomes limited. And when you combine that with what LPNs, LVNs, medication aides, and RNs at the bedside are openly sharing on social media, you begin to understand what is actually happening in real time. This is not about what nurses choose to do. This is about what systems are forcing them to manage. The reality, ratios, roles, and workforce reality. Let's talk about staffing ratios. Because one of the biggest gaps in those regulations is staffing ratios. They focus heavily on registered nurse requirements. But in long-term care, registered nurses are often in leadership roles. Directors, supervisors, administrators, and staff development. They are essential, but are not always the ones consistently at the bedside providing daily medication management. That responsibility falls heavily on LPNs, LVNs, medication aides, and RNs at the bedside. So when we talk about staffing shortages, we have to ask, where is the shortage actually happening? And why LPN, LVNs were eliminated from staffing ratios, the nurses responsible for day-to-day resident care, medication management, and the ones walking away. They are the ones that are directly impacting the facility's ability to operate. We have to ask, where is the shortage actually happening? Because when the nurses and medication aides are responsible for medication management, they are the ones responsible for the day-to-day resident care, and they are the ones walking away. They are the ones that are directly impacting the facility's ability to operate. That's when you see limited admissions, closed units, and full facility shutdowns, not just because of regulation, but because the bedside workforce is leaving. You see, I reside in Georgia. And while my mom was alive, she resided in Akron, Ohio. And I was still managing her medical aspect of her care alongside 7 siblings as the nurse in the family. The team caring for her took the time for me. They didn't rush me. They didn't dismiss me. When I called, they took the time to review labs and discuss her care with me. They always took time to explain what was happening or call me to keep me informed. And when my husband and I visited, they made accommodations, allowing us to reside in her room with her the full length of our stay. And during her hardest days, when her cognition was impaired, they still showed up. They smiled. They stayed patient. They continuously encouraged her. They didn't give up on her. And that meant everything to me. Because my mom was and still is my heartbeat. I chose healthcare because of her. I followed in her footsteps. So when I speak about this, when I advocate, when I challenge these systems, it's personal. I advocate for every individual relying on healthcare workers to receive the kind of care that I would want and did expect for my mom. I was in a leadership role. I know the struggles. I observed. I understood my staff's pain. And even if I tried to step in and support, I still encouraged them to just put forth effort and do their best. When staff loses trust, clarity, and accountability, they fade away. Care declines. So you ask me why I am advocating. What needs to change? We need systems that will align with reality. We need staffing that supports the bedside, not just leadership structure. We need to protect licensed practical and vocational nurses, medication aides, or anyone who is carrying the highest risk responsibilities, medication management. Because this is not just a people problem. It is more of a systems problem. And before I close, I want you to think about this. What if? What if life shifted overnight for you or a loved one? What if something came along and turned your whole world around? What if you had to make the decision for yourself or someone you love to enter a long-term care setting? What would you expect? Would you want to receive the same care that you're providing today, or the same care you're advocating for, or the same care that you would demand? Would you want care that is rushed, delayed, compromised? And let me take it one step further. Would you want a system designed around roles that are not consistently at the bedside? Or would you want licensed practical vocational nurses, medication aides, the ones managing your medications and overseeing your care or loved ones, to be fully supported or prioritized? Would you feel safe? Would you feel seen? Or would you feel like your dignity was secondary to the system? Because at the end of the day, if the roles were reversed, would this be enough for you? Because one day it might be you or someone you truly love, and the standard you accept today may be the care you or that person receive tomorrow. So let's start somewhere. Let's advocate for licensed practical and vocational nurses, medication aides, registered nurses managing medications, to have staffing ratios and address the concerns that policymakers and organizations have raised, but in a way that actually protects the care being delivered at the bedside. Let this be the start. Let this be the change. Let's build systems that bring licensed practical and vocational nurses back into long-term care, supported, protected, and empowered. Because when we strengthen the bedside workforce, we improve care, restore dignity, and ultimately, we save lives. I am Juanita, the founder of Uniquely Spoken LLC. I started this podcast to ignite change in healthcare, starting with long-term care settings. It is time to transform nursing home and rehabilitation centers, assisted living, and memory care communities to all become premier long-term care settings nationwide. It is time for all long-term care settings to receive a 5-star quality and customer service rating. It starts now, and it starts with me. It starts with you, you, and you. And the time is now. Thank you for joining us. We broadcast every Tuesday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to join the conversation, request to be a speaker, and partner in transforming long-term care settings. And don't forget to tune in next week. Thank you for joining us on Uniquely Spoken LLC podcast. Please subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Remember to connect with us. Follow, comment, subscribe, share, be a guest. Visit us at uniquelyspokenllc.com/podcast. That's UNIQUELEESPOKEN llc.com/podcast. Or if you are a viewer, scan our QR code. Please remember to stay informed, stay empowered, and keep the conversation going. We love hearing from you, and we'll see you next week.